Hi guys, welcome to the Doghouse with me, Ria Bow, and my co-host today is Mike Phillip from Canada Radio, American Radio in Canada. How you doing, Mike?
Doing great, Ria. Thanks for having me on today. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, same here, sweetie. Hi everyone. If you're in the chat, just drop us a message, see if the chat's working. Nice to know you're out there. If you have joined us from KJJ from this morning or a couple of hours ago, let us know you're out there. It'd be good to see you and see what's going on, see if the world of chat is alive. But I also wanted to say, for anybody that was on the KJJ radio thing, I didn't do a great job at explaining some of the stuff. In my defence, I got a call this morning saying, "You're coming on," so I said, "All right then," and on I went and did the best I could. So if it needs explaining again, just ask, and I'll willingly do it, no problem at all. And until then, did you enjoy the KJJ radio this morning, Mike?
I did. I found myself more in a learning role because I'm not an economist and I'm not an expert on Bitcoin or digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, I guess you'd refer to them as. But I don't pretend to know things that I don't. And a lot of the, I have a general knowledge when it comes to that sort of thing, but I also noticed that a lot of the self-proclaimed experts and gurus of economics are frequently wrong too, so I don't feel too bad.
Yeah, no, I didn't know it was going to be a learning thing either. I thought it was just going to be a little chit chat about a bit of crypto, not too much but not too little. But since we did the last show, which was, I can't remember when that was, the last one, and the one this morning, more and more people have asked about cryptocurrency. So I've put the cryptocurrency prices at the bottom of the screen, so you can see Bitcoin is currently 10,085 US. We've got Ethereum at 482, which is an all-time high. Bitcoin Cash, we've got 1540 USDT, that's always a dollar, and another big one, Litecoin, is just sitting at the psychological 9995. So all good there as well. So we'll have to see how that goes through the show. Today I was going to do a bit of world weather to open up with. We got one. I just read Bitcoin is 14,000 Canadian right now, and that is a huge ass. Hi Hugh, thanks for joining us. It's kind of you to come in. I might have cocked the chat up there somewhere, I don't know. We'll have to see. There's some other ones there. I can't do anything about it now though. But if you message more, it will come up the screen and I'll be able to see it. Quick world weather, right? So what we're going on the world weather. I quite like the world weather. Today we've got Alberta -4, Toronto +5, England +5, Nice, south of France, +11, Malaga, southern Spain, +11. Camrose is currently sitting at 0, which is where Mike is. We've got Rio de Janeiro at +25 C. We've got Cairo at 20 C, Rome at 13, Cape Town at 20, Moscow at -4, Seoul, Korea at -3, Mumbai is 28, Tokyo is 13, Sydney's 21, and Oslo, Norway is -1. So a bit of world weather there to be getting on with. And don't know how to close that. There you go. So you got anything that's caught your eye today, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. Matt Lauer just got fired, and if anybody wants to know who this guy is, Matt Lauer was the host of the morning show on NBC for the last 2 decades. And if you remember, it was Matt Lauer that released the Trump tape when he was on that bus with that Bush kid and all that, grab him by the pussy and all that, right? Where he was, it was locker room talk. Matt Lauer made the biggest stink about it, and now his career has been unceremoniously axed. I love it. I hate these media guys. And really, they're just a bunch of shills. If you look in, I don't know if you ever heard of Operation Mockingbird, Rhea, but the CIA got involved in all news media, the big stuff in the United States anyways. They controlled the narrative for a long time, but it looks like there's a kind of a purge going on between news media, Hollywood, your Anderson Cooper types, who's an aster and a CIA asset, and I love what's going on.
Yeah, I believe you. I mean, as soon as you hear CIA, it's kind of, Ooh, we got one in saying, I think I got the weather report wrong. Hugh Jass has just said it's 0 in Alberta, and my weather report says Alberta. Where's Alberta? Saying -4. So that is coming in. I don't know how it's coming. It's coming in on my Mac on a world weather thing. So I'll write to them, Hugh, and say, look, we've got it firsthand, Mister. You've got it wrong. You know, Hugh knows what's going on. Hey, thanks, Hugh. So it's 0 in Alberta.
God bless global warming. 0 in Alberta at the end of November. That's all I have to say. I think there should be a day, one day a week where everybody in the Dominion of Canada goes outside and aims a can of hairspray at the sky and just lets go, leave all the vehicles running. South Central Alberta, God's country. Awesome. I lived in Medicine Hat, Hugh.
I love the irony. I love a bit of irony. Yeah, as soon as I hear the CIA, just like, oh, I posted a Ben Garrison cartoon with the CIA as it went through the ages, the 50s, the 60s, 2000s and stuff, how it's become a big sort of growly dog and stuff like that. So, yeah, that kind of thing. So I'm learning about Canada, Mike. I did a brief read this morning, which I know sucks, but I'm doing so many things at the same time on a brief history. And I'll tell you, after I read this brief history by Lady Oliver something or other, I'd like to know more about the Hudson Bay Trading Company and how they had their fingers in the pie. You got any? Can you educate me at all there, Mike?
Yeah, they had a lot to do with colonizing the rest of Canada, with sending people out. They had their tentacles all over the country, basically. They had these Hudson's Bay blankets that were white with colored stripes on it, and they've always been around all my life anyways, but they were also instrumental in bringing British military with them and affecting the fur trade and setting up little fiefdoms all over the country and controlling that. There was a big battle between the French and the British over the fur trade. And so, ultimately it's arguable, but the British won. Way to go, Rhea. And the Hudson's Bay Company was almost had wings of it that were like paramilitary or military contractors that were working for the Brits. And there's actually a really good series on Netflix about that right now. Little wars between the British military, the fur traders, these different companies that were trying to move in and set up forts and populate the West. I can't remember the name of it, damn it. You know what? If I come up with it, I will let it out. But, yeah, the Hudson's Bay Company has a long and rich history in this country, so it's a good read if you want to get into it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it wasn't particular to the Hudson Bay Trading Company. It was, as I was reading the history of the takeovers of Canada, with French had their fingers in there. Obviously, the Brits have got their fingers in there. British government. Don't blame me, guys. I wasn't there, and I don't agree with it, and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, I don't want to go into stocks. It wasn't my fault. Do you know what I mean? I'm in for keep it local, act local, think global, Gandhi. So I'm big into that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just going to bring up a couple of notes here. I mentioned on today's show about a shout out to a Canadian about Bitcoin, and his name is Ben, and he's on YouTube, and he's called BTC Sessions. He's just the loveliest guy, absolutely the loveliest guy. And if you did want to know, sort of, it's really palatable, easy listening. He's so easy to listen to. So check Ben out, BTC Sessions. I think amongst
you should reach out to him and have him on the Doghouse sometime, Rhea.
I would love to, I tell you, because he is just super lovely. There's just nothing about that guy that isn't lovely. And I think he's from Calgary, and I think he represents Canada in a really, really good way. If he was representative, he's a top guy. What else we got going on? So a couple of stories. You picked up one. Let me pick up another one here. So I want to pick one up about the Federal Reserve in the US. And it says here, Federal Reserve Chairman nominee opposes audit the Fed legislation. President Donald Trump's nominee to lead the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, has said has said that he's against the controversial Audit the Fed legislation. The bill designed to make the Fed more transparent has been stalled in the Senate for years. And again, before Trump was in, he was like, oh, you know, sort the Fed out. Now it's in. One of his guys are in it. Hasn't really changed. So not a surprise on one hand, but there you go. I want to say hi to Night and Day Plumbing. Thanks for dropping a message. There's some other messages in the bottom. I seem to have got this wrong somewhere on the messaging, so apologies for that, guys. But you'll have to message more as it comes up as we go. So what do you think about the Fed thing? Do you think they'll ever audit it, Mike? I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to happen, but just let me change topics here really quick, because Hugh Jazz just made a great comment going back to the Hudson's Bay blankets. My household had those blankets when I was a kid. I broke out in little red spots the first time using one. The reason he says that is because they were accused of giving smallpox-infected blankets to the Indians.
Wow.
And that's what he's referring to there. Getting back to the Federal Reserve. This has been the fight. This has been the fight throughout America's history. One of my favorite presidents is Jackson, because it's said that some of his last words were, "I beat the damn bankers." Always been this war. I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said, if we allow the currency to be controlled by a central bank, our children will wake up homeless on the continent that their fathers conquered. Well, that's happening due to central banking. So I was a big fan of Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Okay? And big fan. He had the highest numbers with the military. He was very popular, but the media shot him down every chance that they could. Even conservative media, Bill O'Reilly, you know, this big champion of conservatism in the U.S., Bill O'Reilly, every time Ron Paul came up, he basically would make him look like Satan and make little inferences that were fuzzy and couldn't be proved, kind of suggesting that he was some kind of a freak or a perv. And so watching that was a big split with me and the cognitive dissonance that you have to believe mainstream media. Now, it wasn't about Ron Paul. It wasn't about the man. It was about the ideas that he was putting forth. He wanted to audit Fort Knox. He wanted to check into the gold reserves. They wouldn't let him do that. That topic was taboo. Wanted to audit the Federal Reserve. Taboo. They had to shoot it down every way that they could. So what you're talking about right now, this is a mere extension of the war that has been going on in the U.S. behind the scenes forever, and they don't teach you that in school. That's why your average American isn't too hip on it and doesn't really care, but it's getting more and more popular as freedom and 1776 worldwide is coming around again. Mark my words.
God, wouldn't that be good? It's the only way it's really going to change.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, power to the people and all that kind of stuff. I love it. I mean, that's, like I said on this morning's show at KJJ, at Kevin J. Johnston, you know, we've got to do it for ourselves. We can't rely on them, you know. They've proved time and time again that we can't rely on them. So that's why we want to build the Doghouse family and build it on trust and getting to know each other. And any of you guys out there listening to this, watching this, if you got some of what you want heard, bring it on. Do you know what I mean? Come as you are. Don't bother me. And just bring us and enlighten us all. And so we get to know your story as well and what's bothering you and what's on your mind. Because half the time we don't know what's on everybody's minds, you know. There could be something that's a real issue and we don't know what that is. So we need to check that out, you know. So don't be afraid. Come say hi, and you're welcome in any shape or form on this show, let me tell you. Right, I'm going to move on to another one quickly. This is a Russia one, because we all know about RT and having to sign on in the US as a Russian agent and stuff. Google assures, Google assures Russia media watchdog it won't change search algorithms to re-rank RT and Sputnik. Google wouldn't do that, would they? Oh my goodness, how would they? Who on earth would even think that Google would do that? Google has written a letter to the Russian media watchdog saying despite Eric Schmidt's recent comment, the company claimed it doesn't re-rank individual websites. Of course it doesn't. Do you know what I mean? What do you think, Mike?
Well, it's more of the same old, same old. Of course they do. I'm not a fan of Google anyways. Can we address another comment here?
Yeah, do
Night
it.
and Day Plumbing Solutions says the Hudson Bay Company sound very much like the old East India Company when Britain were expanding their empire back in the day. You're 100% right. You're 100% right, Night and Day. Good comment. And it's a business model of takeover and conquest. You get these businesses in comes the military, and you know what I mean? So, totally. Excellent comment. But back to what you were talking about.
Okay, so I'll take it from there then. Okay, so...
Yeah, you take it from there.
Okay, so would Google... they're saying, we'd never re-rank anybody. No, cool.
Right. Sorry, I got lost a little bit. Yeah, Google... See, and they announced the same thing on Facebook. They've got to... It all goes back to this narrative, this boogeyman of Russia. The Cold War called. They want their threat back. Like, this is so stupid, this Russia, influenced the U.S. election in any way. But they've got to fail forward. They've got to stick with it with this Mueller probe going on. And you see collusion with the media. You see collusion with Google. The DNC, the elements within the GOP are sticking with it. And I think it's beautiful because the more they do, the more it highlights who the enemy is. I mean, the quickest way to identify a tyrant is to make them act like it. And Google, it's a funny thing with Google. You'll talk to people about things. You'll bring up a subject, and all of a sudden people are an expert on it because they can whip out their phone and say, Google, what's this or what's that? Google tells them, and then suddenly they have a definitive education on the subject, and the case is closed. So it's a big prison for the brain, I think, Google.
Yeah, you need to be really subjective, and I think I can agree more. I mean, people it's become like a thing, isn't it? I'll Google it. It's not like I'll check it out. It's I'll Google it, which is something of a concern because these algorithms they run are, God, that they're incredibly clever. They're way cleverer than we are. So. And they know how to hone it in and target it. So I won't harp on there. Right, I've got a little bit of what I think could be good news. But here's another one. World's first vending machine for the homeless to be unveiled in the UK in December, followed by LA and New York City next year. What do you think? Vending machines for the homeless. Good idea?
Well, what are they vending and how much does it cost? I mean, homeless people aren't generally known to have a lot of money, but what's in it for them? Food, toothbrushes, what?
No, as far as I can make out, it's not. I don't think it's a money thing. It's like you get some kind of card ID, and then you can go to the machine and as an allocation. And if you've got no food, you can get some food. It's not a money thing, Mike.
Okay, well, I guess that's a good idea. Yeah, anything to help out the homeless, I'm all for it.
Yeah, right. So totally. So that seemed like a little bit of good news there. Right, I've got another one here. Facebook to expand suicide prevention AI following successful US tests. Bit scary. Facebook announced on Monday that following successful tests in the US, it will roll out a pattern recognition software designed to scan for posts with suicidal intent to other countries except the EU. So that gives an insight into how much they're looking at what people write, and the suicide rate is up globally in young men. So that's a bit of a concern. What do you think about that? Algorithms and stuff on Facebook, Mike?
Well, the suicide rate among men being up will make a lot of feminists happy. I know that. But actually, when they were doing this in the U.S., we covered this on my show, and it was crazy because anybody could just hit a button and report somebody that they thought was suicidal, and then all of a sudden the authorities are notified and they're involved. And, I mean, with designating somebody as suicidal or mentally ill, we see where that was used with veterans to restrict their Second Amendment rights in the United States. We see that happened in the old Soviet Union too. If you were anti-government, if you were against the system, you were deemed insane and incarcerated and drugged. So I mean, I see this as being kind of down the same road eventually, where they'll take something that who could argue that we need to prevent suicide, right? Who could argue that? You know, what do you hate children?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So who could argue we need to prevent suicide? So, you know, they set up all this stuff, but it's a creeping tyranny under a good idea that everybody can get behind, and that's literally how I look at it.
Yeah, that I just had a flashback of something I was listening to Stefan Molyneux. I hope I'm saying that properly. Probably not. Apologies if I've got it wrong.
You got it.
Did I? And he explained it as the way this creeping tyranny, which I think is a great way to explain it, is he summed it up with it's like water lapping against rocks, and it eventually finds a crack and then just keeps going down this crack sort of thing and widens the crack to increase the tyranny in this sort of scenario. And he was saying that's the reason whenever we come across it, when you come across some of these useful idiots, that you need to confront it as best you can, obviously, and put together a constructed argument for people that are I don't know, not been red pilled or something like that. I don't know. But the water lapping, finding the cracks kind of resonated with me, Mike.
Yeah, incrementalism, right? You know, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of a deal. They're still moving forward. And the interesting thing to me is that, you know, from all of their writings and, you know, all this Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, why don't they just bring down the hammer? If they were able to, and that's what they wanted to do, why not just bring down the hammer? Why do the dance? Why try to convince you to enact these new laws and to enact new policy and regulations? If they could do it, why wouldn't they? Because we are still holding the chips. We're still in a position of power, and they know it. They're getting closer, but just the fact that they even dance around the issue tells me that we're still in a good position. That window's closing, though. That's what I think. Do you agree with that statement, Ria?
I do. I mean, I think there's a couple of really scary things, and one thing that we really need to not happen is go cashless. I think it's a super bad idea. Every angle I look at it, I mean, it's like that creeping tyranny thing with, oh, well, it's just easy to use the card or whatever, or crypto or whatever. Yeah, no, it's pretty damn easy. But then you look at the consequences behind the curtain of a cashless society. Oh, that makes us so vulnerable. It's just super scary stuff. Okay, I'll move it on, Mike. Or do you want to pick up on a story, or shall I move on to another one?
You go ahead.
Okay, so we've got another Russian one here. This is for the gamers in the community. I want to learn more about the online gaming thing. It is huge. It's tribal. They love it. They live it. It's a real community that I don't know much about. Obviously, I've got the surface view, but I looked around Twitch, which is a streaming platform because we're streaming, and just saw a massive amount of activity, huge. And I want to pick one up about the Russian Security Council. So check this out. Russian Security Council seeks to identify online gamers in a fight against terrorism. Russia's National Security Advisor body has ordered the development of a nationwide system of identity for computer game players, claiming that terrorists use the anonymous in-game chats for secret communication. I think gamers' worlds are about to change a little bit, Mike. What do you think?
Yeah, gaming is something that I don't get too much into. I've had friends and people that I used to know that almost turned into a drug addict when it came to gaming. Like, you wouldn't see them for a week and they'd come out all gray and emaciated.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what's going on with that. I think that, you know, a lot of work has been put into, you know, just like cigarettes are addictive. They did the testing. They found out how to make repeat customers. I think it's the same thing with, you know, television, gaming, everything, right? But as far as Russia wanting to crack down and make it so that there's no anonymity, that's, I don't know how to see. I'm against the whole NSA and Big Brother looking over your shoulder all the time. But I guess it depends on who's behind the steering wheel on it all. And I don't know what they're dealing with. I know that Russia does not have the terrorism problems that the UK does. I know that they don't have the terrorism problems that Sweden does. So it's a tough call to make because I don't know their situation. Are they full of it? Are they lying? Are they trying to improve national security? That's a tough call.
It is a tough call. I mean, on one hand, it's resonating with the creeping tyranny where they slowly get into people's lives, and they could have identified this huge world that most of us know little about. So if you're a gamer and you're watching this, or because I know this is going out on Twitch, come and tell us about your world, would you? I'd love to learn more. I would so love to learn. And I've seen some of you guys on there. You are slick at what you're doing. So I'd love for you to bring to us so we could learn some as well. But ultimately, my thoughts with the Russia setting up the security cyber thingy is it won't be long before every other country is doing the same thing, Mike.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've got a comment over here from Night and Day Plumbing Solutions. Oh, my God. If we went cashless, the banks would really have us by the short curlies. It would be game over for any kind of monetary independence. 100% agreed. And, over in the Western countries now, they're talking about guaranteed basic income. At the same time, there's this shift going over to cryptocurrencies. And, in fact, on KJJ, we were discussing, what if the government outlawed cryptocurrencies or the use of them, introduced their own, you get your credits put into your account every month or your digital wallet by the government, and then you're guilty of a thought crime, just like in the old Soviet Union. Disagreeing with government policy is a thought crime or a mental illness. They dock your cryptocurrency that you can put in your digital wallet, your guaranteed basic income, and then it's illegal to be homeless and prison camps, the whole bit. That's how I see it going, if they have their way.
Oh, totally. God, yeah. I mean, if they had their way, they would just disguise the fact that we're being farmed, and it would just be outright. So that's my kind of take on that. All right, so yep, I'm on board there. Let's move on to another one here. Here's a tweet from Julian Assange. If Google's real concern was the spread of misinformation, it would have already deranked sites like CNN and MSNBC for war propaganda. Just gets in there and says it. I think that's great. Okay.
100%.
Yeah, so totally. That was just one that I caught on the Julian Assange thing. Right, here's one. So because I was out, I used to do a lot of the news a little while ago now, so I'm still sort of coming up to speed with this thing that we're doing. I started checking out the news because Mike and I were going on today, and I'm going to be doing more of it. But I want to bring something that where we sort of feel as though we have some skin in the game somewhat, It's kind of relative rather than some of these faraway lands that we need to join the dots up to see how it affects us. But on my search around, I'm guessing a lot of you guys listening to this may know this, but this was news to me yesterday. Mike, have you heard about anything, a plague in Africa?
I always hear about plagues in Africa, but yeah, they're talking black plague or bubonic plague is coming back. We've heard reports of it showing up in California before. We've also heard that the bird flu, the swine flu, SARS, Ebola, and the only people that win in that situation is companies that make rubber gloves and masks.
Okay, I'm with you. Right, so this was a bit more specific. This was in Madagascar, and there's a bioweapons lab in Madagascar. I'll read it out here. Africa braced for an epidemic of deadly airborne plague after it infects 1,300 people in Madagascar. Health chiefs are desperately trying to contain a deadly outbreak of airborne plague in Africa that has prompted warnings in 11 countries. More than 1,300 cases have now been reported in Madagascar, health chiefs have revealed, as nearby nations have been placed on high alert. 2/3 of those suspected to be pneumonic, described as the deadliest and most rapid form of plague by the World Health Organization. I just found that I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't know there was a bios lab in Madagascar either.
Well, I know that they'll dance with their dead relatives after a funeral, so that could have something to do with it.
Totally.
Rhea, you got to give me a sec. I just heard a crash. I've got to go. I'll be right back.
Okay, sweetie, I'll pick it.
Hold the show. Sorry.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Okay, guys, just me for the time being. We're going to have a quick look on. I found two counter stories here. One about the EU, if you're if that concerns you. France's President Macron. Francis Macron vows to ban glyphosate weed killer as Germany swings EU vote in its favour. So glyphosate is done by Monsanto, boo, and we're teaming up with Bayer, boo, formerly IG Farben, boo, who did so. They've got Agent Orange under their belt. They've got the gas. IG Farben made the gas for the gas chambers and all that kind of stuff. They're kind of an iffy bunch, but Germany are trying to go for it, but France are saying no. It says here, the EU has managed to prolong the licence for Monsanto's controversial glyphosate weed killer for 5 years with Germany's unexpected support, but the French president vowed to ban it in France within 3 years. So glyphosate has had some bad press. It's that GM thing and that whole unsavoury thing with it. I prefer nature myself. But yeah, so what do you think about that? Glyphosate weed killer being banned in France, Mike?
Yeah, first of all, my apologies. We have a pet, my wife and I, and it knocked something over upstairs, and I thought the door was getting kicked in and I was getting SWAT teamed. So I had to go check that. Anyhow, no, it was the stupid rabbit that my wife insisted on having after she saw one on Facebook.
Nice.
Thanks, Facebook.
Nice.
So,
do you want me to go? Do you want me to do it again?
No, glyphosates, yeah. First of all, the big topic, it's something that we've been covering actually for a long time. My executive producer over at American Rock Radio, his name is Super Don Naylor, and he's also the producer of the Robert Scott Bell Show. If you want really up-to-date information on regulation as far as glyphosates and poisons go, listen to the Robert Scott Bell Show, because those guys are on it. That being said, we've seen a drastic raise in cancers, Alzheimer's, and, you know, this isn't completely because of glyphosates, but I think that glyphosates plays into it. I think that it's a perfect storm of poison in the food, poison in the water, poison in the air, lack of nutrition, lack of nutritional density in food that's grown due to depletion of soils, and then you go and poison it on top of that, and people are sicker, and the medical cartels get richer. We did a show, actually, last year. There's a farmer in Saskatchewan, here in Western Canada. His name is Percy Schmeiser, and his neighbor was using Roundup-ready genetically modified seed on his field, and this guy was not, Percy Schmeiser. And what happened was some of his neighbor's seed blew into his field, and he was noticing that these GMO crops were growing on his land. So he got a hold of the company and had them come out and take a look. Well, they tried to seize his land, saying that they had a patent on those plants and they were on his land, therefore the land belonged to them. Well, I went to the Supreme Court of Canada, and Mr. Schmeiser won, but they harassed him forever. So the whole glyphosate thing, it goes into so many different areas. Not only that, but, you know, it's just constantly trying to improve on creation. If we tinker with the building blocks of everything around us, we'll somehow make it better, but they just make it worse all the time. Speaking of which, remember Agent Orange that they were spraying in Vietnam?
Oh, totally. That was Monsanto.
They were spraying that in the ditches along the roads in Ontario.
Whoa.
As a herbicide.
That is so scary. I mean, I was just saying
Right?
about, yeah, totally. And Monsanto have married up with Bayer, who was formerly IG Farben. You know IG Farben?
Yeah, they were a German company.
Yeah, that did the gas for the gas chambers.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we won't linger on that one anymore. Let's see. So off the back of that, with this toxic contamination thing that's going on. We've got a bit of a theme going here, haven't we? How do we know? How do we know? So I found this to counteract if you're living near pesticides and some of this nasty GM stuff that messes with your DNA and RNA and stuff. New groundbreaking technology lets you test your hair for pesticides. For the first time ever, the Detox Project, working alongside Kudzu, spelled Kudzu Science, is enabling the public to find out their long-term exposure to a range of the most used pesticides at home and in agriculture. So we can now sort of cut a little bit of hair off, put it in some stuff and find out how much you've been exposed and how toxic you are. I think that's a great idea, Mike.
Well, I think it's a good idea, but at the same time, so great. Now you know, you still live in the same place that you do. You're still breathing the same air. You're still drinking the same water. I mean, you can change up your food habits. That's another interesting thing. They constantly lobby against laws that would force them to label GMO products. Very telling.
Oh, totally. I reported on it, ages ago on a news program saying that 3 states in the US tried to get it labelled, just a labelling saying this contains GM, and they got overturned by Monsanto. And just they've just never got it. This Monsanto-Bayer partnership is unbelievably scary. One of the worst. Well, it's bad. I can't say it's the worst thing out there, but it's pretty bad. You got anything you want to pick up on before I move over to cryptos, Mike?
North Korea tested an ICBM, and the U.S. military is saying it can reach anywhere on the planet. And I think that might scrub them off of the to invade list, because normally NATO doesn't invade countries that would give them a run for their money. They tend to kick the puppy in the room.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, no, totally.
Never know.
I saw it on there. I mean, North Korea, they're like, phew. I know they're only little, but they didn't keep North Korea for nothing. And another thing, I was listening to an article by a North Korean, and he was trying to get the point across in a big way to say, North Korea and South Korea, we're the same people. We're not a separate people. We're only separated by governments. But in our hearts, we're all one people, and people don't seem to get that.
Right, yeah. I actually, when I was a kid, I worked at a gas station for a guy named Kwon. And Kwon was from Korea, and his wife, Mary, would make Korean food, and I would eat it for lunch. And they were really great people. I really liked Kwon. And I asked him about that situation, and what he said to me was that a lot of people, their heart hurts on both sides, because when that divide happened, there was families split up. And then they, to this day, don't know how, they've never seen each other, never had any communication. And as far as North Korea goes, in my opinion, North Korea is a Chinese proxy state and a buffer zone to the west, basically, for their southern border. That's how I see it.
Totally, I couldn't agree more. It was just I wanted to repeat this guy's words because he was so passionate about it, saying, we are one people. We are one people, you know.
Yeah.
And the world doesn't seem to understand that they just see us as 2 separate entities, and we're not. That's about it. Anything else caught your eye, Mike?
Well, and just going with the North and South Korean border, here in the in Canada and the United States, when I was a kid and we were going back and forth visiting family, there was a lot of times where you didn't even have to show a driver's license. Okay, you just said where you were going, and they'd kind of look at you up from their newspaper and go like this, and you drove across. Well, now you have to have a passport to cross that border, and they're saying that you have to have a Canadian passport to get back in. Why? Because maybe terrorists will get into one or the other country. Meanwhile, people are pouring across the Quebec border, Haitians who thought that they were going to get deported from the U.S. after the termination of that deal, after the earthquake. So the North Korea, South Korea thing, I see that happening here incrementally as we discussed further, a little bit at a time. Yeah, huge ass. He says, I remember those days. Crossing down in Sweetgrass or Big Beef Mountain by Frank Slide there. You could just drive across in many cases. And they're really locking down the border, but not for anybody but citizens of the countries, old stock Canadians and Americans. You got to jump through the hoops. And man, oh man, I tell you, I've got a U.S. passport. I don't have a Canadian passport. And if I ever go down to the U.S. and some border guard tells me I can't come back to the patch of dirt that I was born on, there's going to be a fuss, okay?
I get that. I get it, sweetie. Yeah, I mean, these people can't make enough rules, can they? And
no, they can't. And it's always for your safety.
Always under the auspice of helping. It is
Yep.
same old. It's the mobster story. I see it this simply, right? The mobsters were quite successful in what they did, and where are they these days? In government? No, right. So what happens is you got your shopkeeper, honest working guy or lady or family. Guy goes in, person A, person B, they know each other really. Person A goes in, says you need protection. Shopkeeper goes, no I don't. He leaves, then person B goes in, wrecks the joint, leaves. Bit later person A comes back and says you need protection. And this just goes on, and that they're still doing it today. Do you know what I mean? Where they rock into a country, CIA runs black ops, another NGO goes in, turns over this, that and the other, and they reform under the auspice of help. And they, to be honest, they wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't as successful as what it is. But yeah, that helping thing, we've kind of got to wise up and find a way to go, is that really help? Or is that you got another agenda? And I think ultimately it boils down to trust. And within our Doghouse family, if you come and join us on a regular basis, we're going to do a trust thing, right? You need to educate us and me and Mike and let us know, bring something to the table, guys. Bring your knowledge, so other people can learn as well. I just think it's a fabulous idea. Over to you, Mike.
Well, you talked about trust, and that actually jogged my memory to another story. Australia just, they legalized gay marriage, right? So they're having this big celebration at the UN in New York City. So an Australian UN diplomat was there with his wife, and they were drinking with some guy in an apartment building. And this other guy was twirling around with his wife on the deck of this hotel room, and he got upset. Like, what are you doing, right? And the other guy said, you can trust me. You can trust me. And to prove it, let's play the trust game. The one where you lean back and the guy's supposed to catch you? We dropped him off the building, 7 stories. So, there's your trust for you. Also, good intentions have been weaponized.
Yeah.
Okay, they've been weaponized. Every law that they put across or regulation or whatever, they're tightening the screws on you. They're using stupid people's good intentions. It's like I said before. Well, we need these laws, or you hate children. You don't hate children, do you? Well, meanwhile, we're all getting slowly boiled.
Totally. And thanks for the comments, Hugh. I really appreciate it. And anybody else from KJJ this morning, or anybody else joining us, love the comments. And Mike's getting passionate. I love that passion. And we've got to pull that passion together and pull it and direct it and get it focused and those kind of things. I kind of love it. Right, let's have a quick look at... I'm up to changing gear to crypto, but do you want to cover anything else first, Mike?
No, go ahead, Ria.
Okay, so what I'm going to look at is... because we've got the crypto prices at the bottom and they're live, they're being fed in as we speak. That's quite some interesting numbers there. Bitcoin's still at 10,765. Everybody's anticipating a big pullback or a pretty big pullback, and it's time to go in if that's what you choose. But the whole Bitcoin phenomena, to people that don't know, I think the go-to is it could be a scam and stuff, and I don't know, But I wanted to show you a chart that was put together, a logarithmic chart of the price prediction for Bitcoin. And the chart I'm about to show you was done in 2014, so 3-4 years ago this guy did this. So check this chart out. It's a bit blurry, I've done my best to sharpen it up, but check out this chart. Here it comes. Right, tell me you can see that chart. We've got the years at the top, we've got the percentages below that, we've got what the logarithmic scale is, and you can see where it started in 2011, and what was it, $1. It was $1. That's nuts. It was $1 2011, and it finds its way up, and that little circle in the middle, that orange circle that you can see, the price prediction in 2014 was for $10,000. That is pretty accurate, and you can see where Bitcoin has been following this logarithmic line. Okay, it's up and down, sort of crocodile's teeth, dips and troughs, but it's pretty accurate, isn't it? What do you make of that, Mike?
Looks like a bubble waiting to pop.
Okay, that's fair enough. I don't see it like that. It's what constitutes a bubble for me. Oh no, it may do a pullback, definitely. A bubble is A, everybody wants it, and B, nobody can afford it, and that's when you reach the top of a bubble usually. That's the outline of a bubble. But you can see in 2017 where they predicted it, and the halving in 2021, if you go across the top and drop down, they've got it priced at 100,000 US in 2021, the worth of it. I saw it and just thought it was worth showing you because this was done in 2014. So what do you think about that, Mike? Do you find that encouraging, or you must be kidding, or what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, we talked. I'm undecided, although whether this is a good or a bad thing. Like I said before, the more we switch over to cryptocurrencies, I see that as a setup for a cashless society. But I mean, if these can be kept separate and in use, then that's a good thing. If it separates us from government taxes, but I just don't know at this point. It's amazing. I mean, the wealth that it's generated, how much it's gone up, it's fascinating, but it's also a bunch of zeros and ones on a screen, you know?
Yeah, no, that's what it is. That's the freaky bit, isn't it? Is the whole thing's a bit.
It doesn't actually exist.
No, but the only thing we used to do is paper or whatever is made of these days, kind of money. So it's perceived value, isn't it? So Hugh's written and just went down $400 Canadian. Bitcoin did. Yeah, no, I believe you. It's pretty volatile stuff. And Hugh, if you need a Canadian passport, give me a call and I'll sort you one out cheap.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could do
Our
that.
British overlords issue them, so Ria's the one to talk to.
I didn't do it. Don't blame me. Do you know what I mean? You can have it back. It's not my fault Trudeau does his thing to the Queen of England. I didn't do it. They're Germans anyway, aren't they? I mean, come on. That's funny. Right, I want to do a couple of shout outs for people. The Dean Bletman Show. Check out Dean on the Street or the Dean Bletman Show. We're going to be going back up as well pretty soon. I'll be chatting with him. I want to give a shout out to Dane Wigington that runs geoengineeringwatch.org, and he's the guy behind watching the geoengineering in the skies, the spraying of the aluminium and the story that goes with it. And he did a brilliant phrase today that I'll paraphrase Dane Wigington. He said, if you're not dealing, this is his view, if you're not dealing with directly geoengineering and the damage that's being done by spraying aluminium and the like in the skies, you may as well be lining up deck chairs on the Titanic if you're dealing with anything else.
That's a fascinating topic, geoengineering, because they deny it, but they admit to it all the time, like out of both sides of their mouth.
Oh, I've got some damning footage from a young lady working in the military that was not coerced, but kind of found herself in getting the information and seeing all the stuff inside the planes, and she comes out. I'll have to get hold of the video and we'll play it one day. It is damning, I tell you. This young lady couldn't be any more for real. and she found herself, she starts to talk about it within the military, and the military, before she knows it, she's shut up, out the door, but she carried on voicing her opinion afterwards. So Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.com is one shout out. Go Dane. A serious dude, mine is a scientisty kind of guy. Next shout out is for Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, and he runs a legal organisation that watches what our lot are up to, our lot being people of the world, the government. So Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, he's a guy, he's got his act together, right? So there's a couple of shout outs from me. Oh, and if anybody knows JavaScript, I'm looking for somebody that knows how to write JavaScript. It's not a big project, just a little one, but would you get in touch? Over to you, Mike.
I don't know how to write JavaScript, and Huge has asked, is it a good idea to start mining Bitcoin? What do you think? I mean, based on that projection, probably.
No, and I'll tell you for why. No. What's his name? Check out a video. It's this week he put it out. His name is Cedric Dahl, and he's on YouTube, and he addresses that very topic and his real life experience of is it a good idea or not. Another guy that spoke about it today as well is JSnip4 Joe. He's pretty popular on YouTube, and why you shouldn't. The problem is here's the problem, Hugh, the way I see it is, because this thing is moving so fast, not just in price but in technology, you go out and you buy a GPU rig that will mine this thing. You've got to do the maths, the electricity usage and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. You get this rig at home and you work out the terahash that it will perform at. And then, right, so you've got your equation, but the equation isn't stable because the work difficulty of the code changes every so many blocks. So within X amount of blocks, you could find that your mining rig that you could have threw 5-10k at with all the video cards inside it, all of a sudden the hash rate depletes enormously. So you have this this volatility of, you don't really know, you can't calculate the forecast of it. And everybody that I've heard say you're much better off just, which is what I'm going to do, and I know a few others, wait until Bitcoin does a pullback and then start doing staggered buy-ins and get some skin in the game that way. And for people that are dubious about cryptos, just go through the process. Don't put much in it, you know. Put $100 in, $10, $1,000, whatever, and just get some skin in the game to learn how it works. If you want to know anything anymore, yeah, just get in touch. So that's about us. Do you want to close out, Mike?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been great talking to you today. Another thing we should have mentioned with Google is this whole driverless car thing that's starting to take hold. I'm not a big fan of that at all.
Nor am I. There was a program on in the UK by a very popular guy named Guy Martin, and I think it was on a UK station called Channel 4. And so if you could get it from your end actually. And it was Guy versus the robot car, and he gets in the latest thing, and it's an interesting watch to what this thing can do and can't do and all that kind of thing. So again, it's that same old thing, isn't it? It's creeping tyranny. On one hand, if we trusted the people at the helm, it's kind of not that bad an idea. Just sit back, look at the scenery. I'd love that. But on the other hand, you're going to go to program one thing. My view is you go to program in, I want to go and see Mike, and it goes forbidden. Do you know what I mean? And that's where the problem starts.
Yeah, you're giving up control of where you can and can't go with that. And not only that, but I was watching a video with a bunch of soldiers in Iraq. They were testing out a robot weapon. Okay, this little robot, and it was on tracks, and it had a heavy machine gun on it. And they had it hooked up to a computer console on a table where they could see what the robot sees, and they were going to fire this thing up. And as soon as they turned it on, the thing turned around and targeted them. And they had to shut it off. And so, Good job, guys.
Nice job.
This whole AI. Did you hear about this robot in Saudi Arabia that
I know.
that just gained citizenship and now it wants a baby?
I know. I think it's... Well, they're rebranding Saudi, aren't they, into, well, whatever it is.
I think if somebody sees a robot, they should knock its head off with a bat. We don't need those things.
Totally. The whole thing is like, oh my goodness. I wish I didn't have a dystopian view of the future, but I just do. I just do. Do you know what I mean? Because the trust has gone. The trust has gone. I don't trust them. And I don't want to do that Einstein thing, repeatedly do the same thing and expect the end result to be different. I've kind of done enough of that. And I just need to go about things in a different way. Hence, I'm here with you guys to see if we can get a family started. And we do trust. And Hugh, you know, you'll know loads of stuff as well, right? And you can educate us, and that would be cool. And Night and Day Plumbing, you know loads of stuff as well. So the more we can get the discussion going, and, you know, you guys can bring up a topic. Do you want us to talk about anything? I'm okay with that. Do you know what I mean? I don't mind at all if we can, the sort of thing. But that's kind of it for today. We've done our hour, Mike. That's kind of whizzed by.
It went fast.
It did go fast. You was on form today, Mike. I love it. I love the passion and stuff. I'll pass it to you for a close out, then I'll close it down completely.
Yeah, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can go over to my website, americanuckradio.com, americanuckradio.com. Hit the contact button, and you can get a hold of me that way, and I tend to respond and keep in touch. That's one thing I like about my show is that I've made a lot of friends all over the world doing that, and Rhea is one of them. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and you can hear me tomorrow morning on kjjradio.com at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in North America.
Nice. And I enjoyed today, although I didn't do well explaining things. I did feel on the back foot going So when I'm on another day, because I'm sure I'll be dropping into KJJ another day, and this show, if Kevin's got a lot on though, Kevin Johnston, if and when he comes up with this information that I need, I can just add KJJ on Facebook to the stream, so you don't even need to go anywhere. It's really that simple, because we are covering about 14 streams and his will be 15, so that would be great. But until then, guys, love and peace from the UK always. If you love somebody, tell them, show them in actions, spread the love, come and join the Doghouse family, come and thank you for joining in the chat. We super appreciate it. This is only the sort of second proper show, third with the test show that we did, so it's only number 3. So boy, I really appreciate you being here. So love and peace from the UK. I'm going to play you some music to play you out, and I'll see you pretty soon, and we'll try and let you know when we're live soon. And here's some topics that we cover. See you soon, guys. Bye bye.